Welcome to Aspects of Writing. I'm your host, James Kelly. My co-host is Janet Corsi, and our special guest today is Riana Milne. Milne. I'm sorry, Milne. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
And Milne, you're here for an event.
Yes.
We're here at the, one part of it is the 5D event here in Las Vegas, Nevada.
The Human Consciousness event.
Okay, the Human Consciousness event. And we're at the Alexis Park Hotel in Las Vegas. It's an all-suite hotel. I have to mention that because they're gracious enough to give us this boardroom.
There you go.
And I'm going to let you, Riana, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background, and then we're going to go into your work.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, I am here to talk about, my topic of my talk is the shocking truth why 9 out of 10 people suffer in life and love.
Okay.
And I talk about how childhood trauma and adverse childhood events impact an adult in their communication, and there's toxic cycles of fighting. I mean, there's close to 60% of relationships and marriages are breaking up today, and singles are really struggling to find love today. Unfortunately, it's the life of you're hot, you're not with Tinder and Bumble. That's meeting somebody has come down to a swipe of the finger.
Uh-huh.
So,
yes, that's right.
Which is sad. And so I help singles, find an emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious partner. And for couples who are already established, have a more loving and conscious relationship.
And what are the books that you've written on this topic?
Yes. Well, I have coaching programs. I do coach around the world. I coach women, men, young, old, straight, and LGBT.
Okay.
The common element is childhood trauma. And I've written 5 books, plus my 2 training manuals. And the course for singles is called Dating to Mating.
Okay.
Life and Love Transformation Program for Singles. And then the couples is called Relationship Rescue. And I either have VIP one-on-one, where they work directly with me with unlimited texting and email and Skype calls, or live in Delray Beach, Florida. And then my online platform is called the Life and Love Training Academy.com. So I have 90 days of training for couples and singles on there, or VIP for 6 months.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about your work in a minute, but I do want to talk about a little bit about who you are so people can understand who this author is.
Okay.
You actually have done broadcasting.
Yes. My first degree is from Penn State in broadcast communications. I've had 3 radio shows.
Wow.
Night Moods, Talk Therapy with Riana Milne, similar to like Delilah Fraser format. You call up, you ask me a question, I better be point on with an answer. And then I had my own television show, Life and Love, and that was bringing on guests who had topics that could help people in the life and love areas.
Okay.
And I just got done doing a docuseries called Radical Dating, Finding Lasting Love Over 40.
Oh, wow.
Where there's 5 clients looking for love, and it's a documentary style show. It's on Your Tango and also on YouTube. And I was one of 5 life and dating coaches, and I was assigned my client, Scott, who had some childhood trauma. He was the son of a famous mom who was an actress at that time. And then he also had some adult trauma where his partner of 8 years was killed in front of him by a car.
Oh,
So he was really stuck in going back out to find love. And one of our favorite comments that he made when we were interviewing the clients, he says, the thing I hate about dating is dating itself.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
wow, whoever gets Scott sure has their work cut out for that.
yeah.
And I got assigned Scott, and he was the first of the 5 clients to find love, and he's with his new partner now 10 months.
Oh,
Fabulous.
wow.
And he was
That's
actually
great.
going to be here, which is a shame you're not able to interview
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
But his mom and grandma were displaced in the California fires. So
Oh.
I said,
Oh,
stay with your
wow.
family and help your family out.
Yeah.
So he didn't make it. But the show is fascinating, and it's running right now for your listeners. So
Fantastic. Now, you also have a family of writers.
yes. Well, I am Milne, the generation of Winnie the Pooh, A.A. Milne. And then my uncle was a travel writer, Robert Scott Milne, and he had the #1 newsletter. Thousands and thousands of people in the travel industry got his newsletter. And I remember asking him, Uncle Bob, I want to write a book. What do I have to do? He goes, hun, get 100 initials after your name, and your books can go anywhere.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my credentials, if you're interested, I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I'm a certified clinical trauma professional.
Yes.
I'm a student assistance counselor where I work with kids of trauma in the schools, all the way from grades kindergarten through college. I have experience in all grade levels. LCADC, licensed certified drug and alcohol addictions counselor, where I taught at Robert Stockton College, future counselors for addictions in New Jersey. And then there's other New Jersey credentials. I don't even talk about them anymore because now I'm in Florida, so it doesn't really apply. But there's a lot of initials sitting there now. And I do have my 2 recent books that were written, particularly my childhood dream was to be in Barnes & Noble. So my 2 books, Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve. That went #1 bestseller in couples therapy and women and spirituality. And then the sister book is Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and Success. And they are both rated 5 stars on all the platforms. So they're meant to go together.
I'm going to let you take over for a minute. I'm going to close these blinds because they're interfering with our video here.
Yeah.
So you
Okay.
guys keep talking. You're doing just fine. You take over.
Okay.
Well, you just spoke on something that I'm really curious about. My husband and I have been married for 44 years.
Beautiful.
And
Congratulations.
we can just barely stand each other at times. So how do you bring those moments when it seems like if I want to move to the right, he insists we go to the left. I don't want to go anywhere near the left. How do you meet in the middle? Because I know this is what is breaking up people today. Nobody wants to meet in the middle. And sometimes, frankly, I don't want to be in the middle.
Well, there's a deeper issue here, and this is what I talk about, how childhood trauma impacts you in love. Okay? So I don't know your husband, but if I can tell you all the 10 traumas, and as I tell you them, you could think back in your mind when you were growing up. Did you have any of the 10 traumas, and did he? And then they play out differently in your love relationship as an adult. Now, one thing I can give you a tip of advice is I would tell all my people to take a T break, which stands for a therapeutic break. So you can say, "Hun, we don't agree on this. I want a break." And you do the T sign or you say, "I need a tea break." And it's an understanding that when that is called by either one, you just stop talking and you go take a break. And it's good for a half hour to an hour. You can say, "I'm going to go get groceries. I'm going to walk the dog." It's good to have some physical space. But I tell my clients it's not an excuse to go drinking at the bar with your buddies.
Right, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So it is a rational amount of time, reasonable, and I'd say up to about an hour. And if you're leaving the home, you announce what you're going to do. So it's still done in respect. And then when you are away, you're saying, what are they really trying to say? Why are they upset around this topic? What is going on for them? Now, if you know your partner's childhood traumas, you'll know what's coming up. You see, and this is how I work with couples. And then when they come back to talk, you each come back with 2 ideas that you're presenting to the team. And I always say, do what's best for the team. As a couple, you are a team.
Yes.
And I have a quote, "It's you and me against the world. Nobody else should come before you two.
Yeah.
Not even the children." And people say, "What? Don't you put your children first?" No. Because if you two are strong, your family will stay together and your kids will be just fine.
Yes.
You
Okay.
reminded me of a Helen Reddy song. You and me against the world.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So the therapeutic break works very well for my couples. But again, they practice that as they are coming to a new understanding of the problems, that each of them have grown up with. And then how the emotional triggers come out when they're triggered.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to also ask you, what is the name of the event that you're at today? Because there's several events going on this weekend at the same location.
It's a human consciousness movement.
And we talked about this before we went on air. It's not mystic. It's psychological. Okay.
My work is psychological.
Right.
So it could be some mystics there.
Okay.
There's a lot of people here. And I do have spiritual components in my teaching and coaching because it really does help people in difficult transitions.
Right.
The Live book is about the mindset for success when you're going through difficult transitions. I use a little bit about my story as a single mom and, how I raised my daughters to be very successful and empowered, and I've got one out there changing the world since the age of 20.
And you have one that's a writer.
Yeah, well, they're both writers.
Oh, they're both writers.
Yeah, just different capacity. One has written for corporate, and the other has Alexi Panos, has her books in Barnes & Noble now, too. It's called 50 Ways to Yay, and she's in Australia speaking.
Yeah.
She's one of the top millennial speakers right now, and she was, I think it was Newsweek, one of the top 25 influencers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's up there. Yeah, I'm really proud of her.
So I was going to say, Mom's got to be proud.
I am. I
Yeah.
talk about her all the time. So I also do a lot of parenting coaching as well, because I had to do that in the schools. Teach your a certain way to empower your children for success.
Yeah.
So that they launch successfully.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about your books. You
Sure.
you took a course and actually had to go out there and publish your own work.
I did. It's called By the Sea Book Publishing, and I set that up for myself so that a portion of each of my books can go to charity.
Okay.
So my books retail for $16.95. If I'm at an event like this, I'll sell them for $15. It's just easier.
Right, yeah.
And then a portion of it, $5 of each book, goes to charity. The rest is really for the printing costs and the shipping. And love goes to victims of violence. Men, women, children. So it's not just for women. And Live Beyond Your Dreams, portions of that go to Alexi's charity called EPIC, Everyday People Initiating Change, where she has put water wells in Tanzania, Africa, since the age of 20. And she used to watch the Save the Children commercials when she was a little girl and say, Mom, I'm going to go and save those kids one day. And I said, I know you will. And at 20, she said, I'm going to Africa. And she actually, I was a model and talent agent for my own company, Riana Model and Talent. So I used to empower people to reach their dreams in whatever thing they wanted to do: singing, modeling, acting, dancing.
Writing.
And I've had people in films, on television, the Rockettes,
Yeah.
So, and Alexi was coming up through the talent industry. So she's on 3 multi-platinum CDs as a singer.
Wow.
And she was a host on E! Entertainment News and a couple shows on HGTV. So I was her agent for a while. And then, she got old enough, she kind of took over her own
Well, you've
business.
done quite a bit of stuff.
It's fun. I mean, well, when I was very young, and I dedicate Live and Love to 2 very good friends of mine that died way before their time. And Michael Marcucci was killed by a drunk driver. And in Michael's name, I gave back by becoming a drug and alcohol counselor to help people who had addiction problems. And then my girlfriend of 3 years, my roommate at Penn State, she was murdered by her boyfriend.
Oh, my goodness.
Her name is Corinne. So I say I have the voice for people that don't have the voice anymore, or the little children who are too afraid to speak up about their trauma.
Yeah.
And so, I mention them both in my books, Michael and Corinne.
Yeah.
So my books are wrapped around a charity, and you can't really do that when you're with a big publisher, from what I understand.
Right.
So that's why I went in to be self-published.
Well, no, it would be very difficult to do that because,
Yes.
And we talked a little bit about, you learned there is a technique to getting your books in the store.
Yes.
You can't just go out there and say, I want Barnes & Nobles to put
Yes.
these in the stores and I'm going to do a signing.
Well, I tried that on my own. My book that came out in 2006 was called Watch Me, The Bold New Motivational Attitude for Personal Success. My clients loved it. Barnes & Noble wouldn't look at it. So then I invested $5,000 in a publishing course by John Egan. And I took it very seriously. I got 2 really big notebooks, and I read every page and listened to every lesson. And I said, I'm following it to the T. And I remember being on the class with her. So what are your goals? People, I just want a little book to have at my booth.
Right,
I'm like, I'm going to be in Barnes & Noble store. And they all laughed at me. I said, watch me. I will. So I teach the Watch Me mindset for success.
Yeah.
For young people, older people, to reach their dreams, their
So
passion,
you
their
did
purpose.
that. Your
And I
books
did
are in
that.
Barnes & Noble.
Correct.
Right. So,
Yeah.
because oftentimes we'll have people on who are self-publishing, and their greatest fear is, I will never get my book to stay in a store.
Right.
And you can self-publish today, and your book will get into a store.
Well, I do a lot of speaking in the Florida Barnes & Noble stores during their events, and they also have me talk about self-publishing. And she stood up and she goes, I want you all to know 0.5% of self-published books get in Barnes & Noble. So
Right.
it's not a large number.
Right.
Right.
Now, my daughter's book was picked up by Simon & Schuster, which is amazing.
Right.
Good
Wonderful.
for her. And I just didn't even submit it to publishing houses. I mean, I would love to talk to one now. I would love to be like with Hay House, that has such a good purpose-driven
Yes.
book company.
Yeah.
So that would be a company I'd be really proud to be associated
Yeah.
with, and maybe they would even have a donation piece to it,
Yeah.
But I really haven't had the time to look into that. So
Yeah.
my books are part of my coaching, and then they're sold in the bookstores, and the ones I sell, I'm able to give back And the ones that in Barnes & Noble I can't give back.
I think one of the things people have to understand when you're going out there, no matter what your work is, if you're going to try to get it in the stores and make it a success, you have to think about all the aspects of it. Like I noticed your cover, you've got everything you need on the back. I also noticed you got the QR code on the back.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we always recommend that to people.
You have to.
Yeah.
My Live Beyond Your Dreams cover was done by Dunn, D-U-N-N Design, who has done Sylvia Brown and some other top speakers. The Dalai Lama's book, I believe, was Dunn Design. And the cover alone was $3,000.
Yeah.
So the Live Beyond Your Dreams product was $14,000 to put it together. I had the copywriter for the back cover. I had interior design. I mean, you can't go cheap if you want the book.
And Riana,
accepted.
you know, today a lot of people who are out there self-publishing, anyone can self-publish.
Correct.
If you go through Create Space,
Yes.
you don't need any money to self-publish.
Right.
But I think there's a problem there because I like to encourage and enlighten, and you know, I want people to and inspire them to pursue their dreams.
Yes.
But at the same time, you have to be realistic about those dreams, and you need to find a way to get it out there that people are going to accept it. Otherwise, you're almost spinning your wheels.
Yeah, you can really tell the difference between a good product and one that's not really invested in.
Yeah.
And I went through a smaller little do-it-yourself program online for Watch Me.
Okay.
And it cost about $4,000 and it didn't go anywhere. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to do this right. I'm going to have to invest. I need to know exactly what to do. So it's $5,000 to invest in the publishing course at that time. And like I said, I'm buying a top cover company because the covers everything. And
Yes.
then the copywriting, even though I feel I'm a good writer, I have a copywriter that writes specifically for back covers.
Okay.
So that was $1,200. And then the interior design, you know, it has to be done specifically, a right way. Where do the pages fall? How do they, you know? So everything is down to a science. So really, you know, you have to know the right way to do it. So
Well,
it depends what your goals are. If it's
yeah.
just to feel you write a book and enjoy the process, then do it.
Right. I agree
Yeah.
with that too.
Yeah.
You know, don't stifle yourself. Don't think I can't do this or I should
Exactly.
do it. And a lot of times people are happy if they go out there and sell 1,000 copies.
Yeah.
Really. That's it. And as long as that's your achievement and that's your goal, fantastic. You achieved what you set out to do.
Right. I used to be one of those dreamers. I love the bookstore. I love Barnes & Noble. I used to go in there and say, I want my book in here one day. And then when my sample copy came out, I actually took it and I put it on the bookshelf and self-help, took a picture of it and put it on my vision board.
Yeah.
And started meditating and praying, thank you, God, for my books being in the Barnes & Noble store. Then I said, thank you for love becoming a bestseller. And, you know, I teach my people the power of meditation and the law of attraction.
Yeah.
And it came true.
Yeah. It's so neat though. I know how I can still to this day remember the first time I walked into a bookstore and saw one of my novels on the shelf.
Oh, it's a great feeling.
But you know, the thing I never thought about before until just now is the second time I felt that way was when I walked into the library and saw my book on the shelf.
Oh.
Actually, I felt stronger about that. I thought,
Really?
this is
Yeah.
fantastic. My
Yeah.
book's in a library. So,
That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, they were in Vineland, New Jersey, one of the schools that I worked in. And I went up there and I said, I'm just curious if my book's being signed out. She goes, your books are being stolen. She goes, that's a good sign. They're not being brought back.
That's a
People
good
love your
sign.
books. We need to
Yeah.
order more. I'm like, oh, fabulous, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And they were written for like age 14 and up. I didn't want them complicated because I work with so many students.
Right.
I wanted them to learn the mindset for success. And that's why I had Alexi contribute to Live Beyond Your Dreams. The back end says it works for young people too. So, and she reached really high success levels at 15, 16 through all the way through her life. So she's been using this mindset that I teach parents to teach their children.
So would you say that the events are a wonderful way for you to get your books out there as well? I know you're in the bookstores.
Right.
But you utilize the events, it sounds like.
Well, like I said, I do a lot of podcast work, and I'm just getting out on the speaker circuit now. I was a psychotherapist in private practice, 18 years, so I was really pretty grounded around my office and my clients. And it was hard to just take 4 days and go to a speaking event. You know, that
Yeah.
was
Right.
difficult.
Yeah.
And then I recently moved to Florida and was setting up my practice. Well, my coaching around the world has gone so well, and the transformation is so amazing in my people that I really went close on to the coaching and trauma niche that I'm closing counseling completely.
Wow.
So I'm closing in November because I don't relate to that old fashioned method anymore. Coaching is it. Coaching works. And, like I said, my transformations, they can be read on my website, rianamilne.com. I have like 70 of how this has changed their life from trauma. People with trauma have a lot of anxiety, fear, depression. They lack trust. They're afraid to love again if they've been in dating trauma, relationship trauma. Or somebody with a longer marriage, if their partner passes on, they're like, I haven't dated for 35 years. I don't know what to do.
Right.
So my oldest client was 78.
Wow.
So I work with, from teens into their 70s. Doesn't matter. So it's just the confidence of success and working with where they are now. So now I am more free to do speaking events. And I really want to get this word out about the childhood trauma because nobody else is really working with it.
I do want to ask you this, though, because you deal with childhood trauma. We've had guests on the show. We did one show where we had two guests on the show. One was a therapist for where she actually counseled like abuse.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've dealt with any of that or not.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Family.
And good, because I kind of want to talk about that a little bit in the sense that we had this guest on. One was a therapist, and she basically dealt with the abused wife.
Okay.
Okay. And then we had another one who dealt with her because of where she was placed as a therapist. She couldn't just deal with the abused wife. She had to deal with the spouse and the children.
Absolutely.
So she had to look at it from three
Family
different perspectives.
systems, yes.
Yeah. And she had thrown in this theory, which I'd never heard before, where you almost have to forgive the client before you go into therapy because you have to be able to get into their mindset. And if you go into it with the idea this is an abuser, then you're not going to be able to help them.
Right. Well, as a therapist, we're allowed to choose our clients, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can say, no, I don't treat this population or not. I would not be comfortable working with someone who rapes children. I couldn't
Right.
do it.
Okay, gotcha.
Because I have children and grandchildren, so I would not be comfortable. So we get to choose what clients we feel that we would be most helpful for. But the thing that I talk about is the childhood trauma piece. And like I said, if you'd like, I'll go into what the 10 traumas are, because this is most fascinating.
sure. Yes, please.
And I just did interviews after my keynote speech here. And everyone said, like, I thought I had a pretty normal childhood, that I didn't have these traumas. And one of the women said, I think I had 7 of them at the 10.
Wow.
And I never would have thought that when you started your speech and you said, get out a pen and write these down. So I'm going to encourage your listeners the same thing. Get a pen and a
write it down.
paper, because this may surprise you. Okay? So the 10 traumas. Here we go. Now, when you are very young, you're innocent, and all you know is what mom and dad presents to you. It
Right.
becomes your quote unquote normal.
Correct.
Okay. So you don't really think much. You may cry when something happens, or you go to your room, or you just say, I hate this, like a
Yeah,
little child
right.
would in a way. But then you have to forget it and forgive it, because they take care of you, and you got to love mom and dad, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So while you were young, did any of these things happen? Number one, were your parents addicted to anything? So drugs, alcohol, sex, porn, cheating, hoarding, spending, eating.
Cigarettes.
Not so much the cigarette part.
Sorry.
What's some others? Gaming,
Okay.
gambling, TV watching. They just space out, zone out, and forget about the kids.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's quick 10 addictions. There's many more.
Okay.
Okay. Second, if you were a witness to or a part of domestic violence. Now, one is verbal abuse. So were you yelled at, or did they yell back and forth and you witnessed that? Or did they do the shutdown on you to punish you? They didn't talk to you for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, emotional abuse or neglect. Now, a lot of people wouldn't define neglect as mom's never home because she's working. But think of all the kids that had to let themselves in from school, get their snack, do their homework, have their room clean before mom got home, or they're going to get yelled at.
Yeah.
So they remember feeling fearful and alone. So it
Okay.
gives them feelings of neglect, even though mom's intentions were, I have to feed my family.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's neglect or emotional abuse. The next one is physical abuse, rape, or molestation, whether it's in the home or outside of the home. Now, the recent studies show, admittedly, women admitted to 55% of some kind of physical abuse.
Wow.
Men, 67%. And that's
Wow.
only 1 of 10 traumas. That's only one of them.
So the men were greater than the.
Yeah. Physical or sexual abuse.
Wow.
Yeah. Next one, abandonment, fault or no fault. A no fault abandonment is if a parent should die early, if they have to go off to war, or they have to work a lot and they're not home a lot. Okay, those are no fault reasons where someone still could feel abandoned. Like my dad, I didn't know at the time. He was like James Bond. He worked for the CIA and FBI.
Oh, wow.
And I always used to say, "When's Daddy coming home?" And we never knew where he was. He couldn't talk about it.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
was always at wondering. So that's like a no fault abandonment. He was supporting us. Okay, the next one. Were you part of adoption, foster care, or had to live with other relatives because your parents couldn't take care of you?
Right.
This next one is a very big one. Personal trauma. So bullying falls under that. So I was skinny and tall with big glasses. I was teased a lot as a kid. Well, so is the overweight child. So is anyone that had a medical condition. I remember having an African-American girl in my office. She says, "Riana, my family was amazing. No, I didn't have trauma. I reached this one." She goes, "Oh, yes. Did I feel different? I was the only black girl in an all-white school. I was teased. I was always different. I didn't feel good enough." And then how'd that come out to her as an adult? She was very jealous and didn't feel good enough to be with her boyfriend. So the unconscious "I'm not good enough" from childhood came out in her adult love relationships.
Yeah.
That's how this stuff becomes so fascinating. It's like all these puzzle pieces I put together. Okay, next one, sibling trauma. So your sibling could have been born with a medical issue. They could be bullying you, or they could be the golden child. Like mom or dad favored them for some reason,
Yeah.
and you were kind of neglected.
Yeah.
Now, just after my keynote, we were interviewing some people who heard the speech, and did they get anything out of it? Did it relate to them? And one young lady shared, she goes, "Oh my gosh, when you said sibling trauma, my little brother was born with liver failure. I was only in kindergarten. My mom gave part of her liver. She became sick. They were fighting. They were angry. They were stressed out. Too many medical bills. Her whole life she grew up with this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here is, I'm not important. It's all about my brother."
Yeah.
Yeah.
From kindergarten all the way through her teen years, she said.
Yes.
And
Yep.
now she's attracting guys that aren't good enough. So her cycle is, and I named it. She goes, "Oh my gosh, like, how did you know that?" She goes with boyfriends that give her a lot of attention up front very quickly. They text her, they're charming, and I said in about 4 to 9 months in, they become very toxic, controlling, jealous. She goes, "Yes, how did you know?"
Yeah.
Okay, because she is dying for that love and attention she was not able to get as a child.
Yeah.
So she'll go with that guy that comes on very strong, which is a red flag.
Yes.
And she has this chemistry. Okay, now let's talk about chemistry, and then I'll finish the other traumas.
Okay.
When you are attracted to someone through chemistry, it's taking you back to your childhood normal. So it can be a very dangerous connection. Let's say your dad's an alcoholic, and you are attracted to that charming, outgoing guy that happens to develop an addiction or has an addiction, the life of the party, because that's what you're used to.
Yeah.
And the woman would say, "Well, I would never pick out an alcoholic to marry. And here I grew up with an alcoholic dad, but I ended up with an alcoholic husband."
Yeah.
This happens more than you know.
Yeah.
Because you're attracted to your normal from childhood. Your
Because it's
unconscious
normal,
wants to
yeah.
fix it.
Yeah.
Your conscious wants to fix it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next trauma. Family trauma is the next one. And during this lecture, I just added "and community trauma" because of what just happened here in Las Vegas.
yeah.
And then it's only been 3 weeks since the mass shooting. And I go into how the whole community is affected by PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
And ironically, when I went to school, we only heard PTSD around our soldiers. They come home,
Yes.
and that's all. They never talked about childhood trauma, adult trauma, dating trauma. Never. And a triple
Yeah.
master's, okay? I graduated summa cum laude, and I'm like, why do I not know this? And so family trauma, here's some incidences. Loss of home by flood, fire, mortgage crises.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at all the floods and the hurricanes that just happened. Puerto
Right.
Rico's wiped out. I'm in Florida, like people displaced there. Texas, the fires in California.
Right.
So this is becoming more and more like our normal in our society. It's frightening for any adult. Think
Right.
about our little children that don't have the mental capacity to absorb all this trauma.
Yeah.
So I am surprised from the research, community trauma was not even mentioned. So I'm mentioning it.
Yeah.
It's going to be part of my speech wherever I go because it's becoming so profound.
I
So-
don't think people realize how long that can linger.
Oh, it's a long time. Trauma stays in the brain and the body. It's in the cells. It's in your sympathetic nervous system. So the techniques I teach in my coaching deals with all of that. How to make the unconscious conscious, how to calm the body down, how to go from unconscious fast trigger anger to conscious decisions, working with a spiritual concept, what is for the good of all. There's so much to teach. That's why one-on-ones, it takes me 6 months to really help people get the trauma response system out of their body. And with community trauma, I said, if your loved ones are angry, or they're not sleeping, or they're afraid to go to any casino, or they're staying at home, and there's a lot of anxiety or depression, because your whole world as you know it is different.
Yeah.
It's totally different now.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, and, it's like when my friend died, it's like, oh, he'll pull through. I'm 16 years old. It's like, wait, Michael died? I was like in shock response for a long time. I'm like, how much time do I have? And people can get either very depressed and almost suicidal, or they get very serious about life. It's like, oh my gosh, how much time do I have?
I do want to bring this up because this is based on a novel that I helped someone write. And we had and she's been on our show as well. But I actually helped write a book called Angels Never Die. Oh. And it's a situation where she had 4 children born. Well, she had 6 children, 2 girls and 4 boys. The 4 boys were all born with rare diseases. 2 different diseases. And over a period of 20 years, each of the boys eventually would die from this disease.
Oh, how sad.
But what is interesting about what you're talking about is that nobody looked at how the 2 girls were feeling about this.
Right.
Because you got to talk about, we're not talking about a year or 2. We're talking about 20 years. I mean, yes, they died in intervals, but still, the girls always felt left out.
Of course.
Abandoned.
Yes.
And I always wanted someone to write their side of the story. We often hear the side of the story from the parent and the struggles, and it was terrible.
Yes. Yeah.
But I often think someone needs to examine and talk more about
that would be
sibling.
Me.
Yeah, and
that's why I'm trying to get the voice out.
I think that's an important thing to talk about because they're just as much a victim as the children who died.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that would be a long traumatic response. And those are going to be girls going out, maybe getting into toxic cycle of relationships, going for that fast love.
Right.
Because I want it so badly. And we all want love. It's the number one human condition, of course. Yeah. But then it's the type of person you're attracted to. And this is what we call toxic relationships. And like I said, it's textbook. When I said to this girl, and 4 to 9 months into everything fall apart, they become jealous, controlling. She goes, yes. How did you know?
Yeah.
And people have trauma attract with chemistry people of trauma.
Yeah.
So, and then the 10th one,
Okay.
the 10th trauma is a parent with a mental health issue.
Okay.
So the 2 most difficult is borderline personality disorder, where you don't know what you're going to get. Is mom happy today or is she angry today? She loves me, she hates me, black and white,
Yeah.
And it's very unstable. And the other one's bipolar, which is, manic, a happy stage, or depressed. And then the other common ones are anxiety. So people of trauma have ongoing anxiety. When people come in, it's like, I feel anxious all the time. I can't settle myself down. I said, oh, you have childhood trauma. Well, how did you know? So anxiety and depression are very common. And people that come into me and they're on psychotropics, they're usually off of them within the month.
Oh,
because I do all holistic healing
Yeah.
and health. I do have a spiritual component because that's very important in health and healing and transformation. So, that's why I love what I do, because it does change lives. The research took me over 2 years to find the answers because there was no research on there.
Yeah.
So I had to read like over 200 books to say, and piecemeal it together. And I'm like, okay, this finally makes sense. And then Kaiser Permanente, Center of Disease Control, did this ACE study, Adverse Childhood Events study, that these findings of the 10 traumas that they named that I just went over came out in 2013. After my books were written, I'm like, finally, here they are, based in some scientific research that what has been going on for so long is finally defined.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
In this world today, as we know it today, do you really think there's anybody out there that hasn't had at least one of those events in their life?
9 out of 10 people do. That's what the research found.
Right.
Have at least
So
one
at least
ACE.
9 out of people, yeah.
Yes.
I believe that.
So the important thing is and what I didn't like is post-traumatic stress disorders in the mental health. Like you have to give a diagnosis if you're a therapist. Like this is a mental illness. I don't call trauma mental illness. Trauma is something that happens to you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like a broken arm.
Exactly. It happens to you. So we're a victim of this violence. However, you don't want to stay in that victim mode. You don't want to stay anxious, depressed, angry.
Right.
8 out of 10 people, research shows, have a negative mindset. They got this chip where there's anger all the time or just negative thinking. And I switch that around with my people. 8 out of 10 is positive. They're living a calm and peaceful life. They're living a life of purpose. They understand what happened. They respect it. They forgive it. And childhood trauma goes through the generations. So I said, well, like I said, if you have this, what happened to mom or dad? And let's see what they came from. And we all do the best we can.
Yeah.
There's no parent manuals. Babies don't come with, this is exactly what you do to raise amazing kids. Although some of the research I did when I was pregnant to raise successful kids was from the Better Baby Institute.
Oh.
The Doman method of parenting. And I did a lot of research on that and raised my kids on that. And I didn't mean for my kids to be science experiments, but that plus spirituality, plus everything else I was reading along the way, produced really 2 amazing kids. I'm very proud of my daughters, and they're doing great work in life. So the great news is there's transformation. There's help for this. When people say, oh my gosh, if there's 10 traumas, I have so many of these, and this is why I keep getting toxic love in my life, this can change. And that's, the message of hope I'm trying to get out there. Yeah.
And you have another event today, I think.
I have a singles event for singles to help them find emotionally healthy love. And for singles, it's very important that they become a successful single first.
Okay.
So my programs are half life coaching and half love coaching.
All right.
Yeah, that has to be, because we have to get beyond the childhood trauma stuff first and make them feel amazing about their life in all their different life areas. Then they're ready they're emotionally healthy now, conscious and ready to attract love in their life.
So do you think that it's possible for someone to actually, I have someone I know personally who, and I told this one other time on the air, she was in her 50s and called me crying. This woman was very successful, had retired from a major corporation after 30 years, had a second marriage where they started a cell phone company, very successful, had 3 beautiful daughters, and yet called me crying about what happened in her childhood. And I always said, I actually said to her, why do you keep doing this to yourself? You need to put this past you. It has nothing to do with your life now. Look at what you have.
Right.
So how long does this stay with you?
Well, like I said, we understand. You can't change what you don't understand.
Okay.
Right? So that's the first step of why it happened, forgiving why it happened. And it's very common that those with childhood trauma become very successful in business.
Really?
Yes, because they're feeding the ego. They're getting the accolades they never got as children. So they tend to be very successful entrepreneurs.
That's interesting.
And I could name someone, and as an example, that everybody knows who's in politics in our country, who's ACOA, adult child of an alcoholic, became very successful in business. Mother was kind of docile because father was so overbearing. As a child, he had to work 7 days a week in his father's apartment houses, scrubbing toilets. And in his head, he said, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to have big, beautiful properties. And But then there's something that happens called blurting out. Blurting.
Okay.
Where you don't think before you speak. And it can
You
get
know
you
we
in
know
a
who you're
lot of
talking
trouble.
about. Anyway, go
yes,
ahead.
but I'm not going
I
to
know,
say
I
the
know,
name.
I know.
And, I remember hearing a news report saying, do you think there's a mental health issue? And I'm like, no, he needs a life coach. Hello? He had childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Okay. And blurting out comes, when there's fears or he feels attacked. And then he blurts out something that's not appropriate. So
Isn't
the
there
cases
a
are like
Tourette's
so obvious
syndrome?
to see. No,
No?
If you recall, there was just a comment made that was inappropriate.
Oh, okay. All
So
right.
comments made that aren't appropriate because you're not thinking through. You feel
Right.
triggered. the emotional triggers come out very quickly, so things are said that usually aren't appropriate.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So these cases are really kind of quick and easy to see, you know. So it's trauma can stay with you unless you get the real coaching that you need. And, you know, there's certain people in the entertainment world. There's a famous family on TV, and one of the husbands keeps messing up. Loves his wife and children, but keeps messing up. I said, he is my perfect client, you know, because he loves his wife so much, but he keeps messing up and then feels sorry and remorseful. And then there's a drug and alcohol addiction. He keeps going into rehab. Rehab centers don't work. Why? They don't teach us work.
Yeah.
And I'm a drug and alcohol counselor, so I was hired as a consultant to go in and teach this work based on my books. And the people are there, oh, my God, we love this. I said, I'm not going to talk to you one thing. I'm not going to say one sentence about drug and alcohol. I don't care about that. That's your past. Let's talk about your future now and how to handle it and heal from it and grow forward.
Yeah.
There's also a very famous singer, wonderful singer. I love her music. Her name's very similar to mine. And she had very toxic relationships.
Yeah.
She, a girl of trauma.
Yeah.
And, you know, that would be my ideal client, you know, somebody who's suffering so much in life and love, and they want to love, and they crave it so much. And they have hearts of gold, but they keep tripping themselves up. And that's the pattern I watch for. Yeah.
I do have a question for you. It's probably
Sure.
unusual. Because I actually have someone in my life who experienced trauma in their early childhood.
Okay.
But do you find that sometimes people use that later on?
You
for
mean as a
sympathy?
victim?
Yes.
They want to be
Yes.
a victim.
Yes.
Well, I don't think they use. I don't
Maybe
think
not
they're using it
intentionally.
consciously.
Yeah.
But they do feel victimized. And again, they're very slow to trust people, any people, friends or loved ones. And they still do feel victimized. I mean, like I said, trauma stays in the brain and the body. So we have to make the unconscious conscious.
No, but I mean,
And
like,
heal.
do they use it in a way to get what they want?
That's called manipulation. They do.
They do. Okay.
And, you know, there's all these different side effects. You know, the people that are constantly lying for no reason. Well, that was a coping mechanism as a young child. So let's say the boy that had the F on the test paper comes home scared to death. He could be beat. He changes it to an A. Oh, I got away with it. So he learns to become a good liar. And then that's the wife that says, why do you lie all the time? Like, you don't even have to lie about these things. It becomes so easy.
Yeah.
The guy that grows up to be the charmer might have been the young boy beaten at home. So he goes out and becomes charming to his female teacher to get love and adoration.
Yeah.
Very often the very good students, you know, are coming from homes of trauma because it's the only place they find love and acceptance is at school. I know, working as a school crisis counselor. And or the kid that comes home into school being the bully. The bully always comes from a house of pain and trauma.
But it sounds like there's two avenues here in which you can go. Because it sounds like that you can go one extreme, like change completely into being, like you said, the charmer, even though there was a different type household. Or you could go, let's say there's an alcoholic father, you could become an alcoholic.
Yes.
So there are two roads you could take.
Yes. Well, the two roads I describe is this, and I always say you have a choice. And I actually have a slide in my PowerPoint with a guy looking at two paths, one to the left, one to the right. You can continue doing the same thing you're doing day in and day out and live with the results of childhood trauma. Or knowledge is power. You can learn how to change this. You can learn why it's happening, respect when it comes up, learn to think differently. The singles have 24 questions that they need to ask while they're out on a date to find out that there's someone of trauma and how deep it is. And I use an example in my speech. For example, someone that grew up with their mom beating them all the time. And he has, I hate my mother. I haven't talked to her in years. Well, that's the guy you don't want to date because we call her a mother hater. And he will never respect his wife. But he will be charming, trying to get adult attention all the time. That love, and they often use sex for love. So someone who's a sex addict wants sex all the time is because they didn't have much love as a child. You know, so there's so many different components that come into play with this. That's why it's fascinating.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think a lot of times people think, and there are even religions out there that don't believe in psychology at all. And I think that's a terrible thing because I don't think people realize how important it is to have someone whom you can talk to,
Right.
who can help you sort that out. Because even going to your mom or your dad or your grandparents, they're not really trained per se.
Yeah.
to understand and help you cope with what your mechanism is you're talking
Exactly.
about. And, I admit I've gone to a psychiatrist, from work.
Okay.
At a place I work. And it's amazing how you do need to have someone who can comprehend and understand you in order to work through this.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
You can't just say, oh, well, it's work. Put it out of your mind, go home and forget about it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work that way.
Well, a lot of people complain to their friends, and then very soon they say, well, I don't have many friends. And because, the friends have their own lives and their own troubles, so you don't want to keep dumping your garbage on your friends. So, if you recognize yourself in this pattern, I say, number one, you need a trauma professional to analyze a trauma. Number two, you should have a psychotherapist that knows personality disorders. And three, the coach that takes you from where you are now and propels you forward into a future that you're going to love. And that's why I say in my business, I wear all three of my hats, because I'm always using them in combination, to help my clients move forward without the pain of the trauma holding them back and what they want. So my client examples, like I said, the 2 stars that I use as examples, if they had this information, they could actually know in their mind exactly what to do to calm themselves down and choose differently when an emotional trigger comes up. Instead of acting out and doing something that's going to make things worse for them.
And you'd always want to see a therapist over a friend or a relative anyway, because you're never going to divulge to a friend or a relative all the facts.
Right.
Because some of those facts may put you in a bad light to them.
Right.
So you're better off with somebody who is not connected to you.
Right. And like I said, people have experienced trauma. Please understand, this was not your fault.
Yeah.
Right.
So my voice and my speaking is, please just get yourself help, because once you learn the skills that I teach, you never have to relearn them.
Yeah.
Once you've got them, they last for the rest of your life. So go earlier than later.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I love when someone in their 20s comes in and then their whole life has changed.
Yes.
From it, and their confidence soars and they feel great about themselves, where before they came in, again, anxiety, depression, I see that constantly, and I don't feel good about myself, and who's going to want me as a boyfriend? They have this lack mentality, and me, the world's abundant. There's so many great people who love and want love, and it's just the way you look at life. You either look at it on the dark side, gloom and doom, or living in the light. Which is the spiritual way, and having the law of attraction. That's why you have to become a happy, loving person to yourself first. Love yourself first before someone else will be attracted to love you.
Yeah.
So it is a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're going to be here today and tomorrow.
I speak at 3:00 to singles, how they can attract emotionally healthy love. And then I work with couples tomorrow at 11:30 for them to identify each other's triggers and then how to communicate through their issues when they come up.
So what's next on the agenda for you? Are you writing another book? Are you
my.
planning another series of seminars?
You know how long books... Love Beyond Your Dreams is 424 pages. That was a long one to write, and Live is 328. So that's a 6-month process.
Okay.
From start to finish to my door is 6 months. That's not bad.
No, that's
That's
not bad at all.
fantastic.
Yeah,
That's better than I do.
I've become very focused, and then my notebooks I use for my VIP programs are 200 pages of research-based worksheets that when they fill it out, I know how to help them from there. And then my online school, the Life and Love Training Academy, that's like a 90-page notebook that they get with that. So we work step by step. So what's next for me? I know I have to write a book on the childhood trauma response.
Okay.
Okay, because I touched on it in these two, but since there's more research out now, I'd like to get it a little bit more research-based, and I've been talking about it so much, there's just more information coming out on it, thank God, finally.
Yeah.
So I will be writing that, even if it's just an ebook. But I want to write a book like that. I don't want it to be a big one. I'm going to aim for like 100 pages. And I do a lot of podcasts, but I'm really looking to get out on the speaker circuit. So if any of your listeners need a speaker for this topic, please contact me at rianamilne.com or rianamilne@gmail.com. So I really appreciate you asking me to.
Oh, I know.
Be on
We're
your
here
show.
at this event, and you never know who you're going to run into, and we just invited you up, and you were so gracious to say, okay.
Oh, I'm like, how am I going to work this out? Okay,
you
I just read
literally-
it this morning. I'm like, sure, I'll do this. Now, when am I going to squeeze it in? Because
Yeah.
I have my own filming crew here today,
Yes.
and we're trying to get these other shots in and some interviews and my 2 workshops. But I was like, yeah, maybe I can squeeze it in for a little bit.
Yeah.
So thank you
So thank
for
you so
asking
much.
me.
Well, and we also need to thank Alexis Park because they have given,
Yes.
they donated this room to us
That's
to use
great.
today.
Yeah.
Alexis Park's an all-suite hotel here in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yes.
So, and you can go to my website and you'll learn more about Alexis Park. We actually have a little ad there on the website.
Good. And I
Yes.
also have another company called Romance International Travel. So
Oh,
I'm
you
also
do?
writing up my experience here.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
When I travel, that's what I do.
And when we're ready for your show to air, we will actually put your picture on there
Perfect.
and all the information about you and where they can go as well, even though you did tell us.
Yes, I'd like to offer some things to your listeners as well, if I may.
Okay.
I do give out, if anyone feels that they were definitely hearing themselves in this talk and they have some childhood traumas and want to get some help, reach out to me at rianamilne.com. I offer a 1-hour private by Skype life love transformation strategy session. So I can help identify their traumas and how it's showing up in their life. And it's just a pop-up. Just fill out the form. Tell me a little bit about your story. And then Both Live and Love have free chapter downloads on my webpage.
Okay.
RianaMilne.com. So you can download like the first 50 pages of each book. And then I do have a free app. It's called My Relationship Coach,
All right.
where people can do the ACOA checklist. Did they come from trauma? And that once they're done that checklist, it comes right to my inbox.
Oh, wow.
And I can contact them and say, do you want to talk about this?
Well,
Yes.
I'm just going to say the website is RianaMilne.com.
Yes, correct.
So I want to make sure they understand that.
RianaMilne.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you
right.
so much, Rihanna.
Thank you, James.
And it's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you, Jan, for having me.
Oh,
I
you're
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Right.
So fascinating.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.